Hi, my name is Drew and I'm going to be walking you through the Outdoors RV Creekside 21 KVS today. We're going to start right up front here with the electric tongue jack. Very basic operation. You have, of course, a light that's going to give you a point of reference if you're backing up and coupling after dark, or lighting this pathway here, again, if you're doing any of that after dark. Other than that, up or down operation here on the jack, we can see that jack leg retracting down, and then of course we go in the opposite direction. That's going to go ahead and bring it back up. Underneath this leveling bubble here, we do have the option to activate this manually. You're going to, of course, use this crank handle to do so. We put him down inside, line him up with that drive nut. That will allow you to go ahead and muscle that up or down. Hopping back here, we have two 30-pound propane tanks for you today. They are going to be full. When you pick up the unit, open and close valve on the top, and then you do have a switchover regulator here in between the two. So whichever side that we are directionalizing this arrow towards, that's going to be our primary tank. We're going to draw off of that tank. When we want to go ahead and use the other tank, we manually switch that over there to the other tank. This is all covered by your propane cover here. This is going to protect those cylinders from weather, road debris, things like that. Only thing to remember is when you are placing this over those tanks, we want to make sure that this door is opening towards the camper. That way it is not catching wind when you're going down the road. So make sure that these little turn catches are going to be facing the camper there. Behind that, we have two Group 24 deep cycle batteries. These are Interstate branded batteries. Now these do carry some maintenance. What that's going to entail for you is every few times a year, every 2 or 3 months, we're going to go ahead and pull these vent panels up. We're going to refill with distilled water as necessary. So what we have inside is going to be a clear mark water level. It is just very important that, again, we maintain that water level with distilled water. Moving on, here in this large pass-through compartment, not too terribly much that we're going to see on this side. We have some controls for the stabilizer jacks and things like that on the other side. But we do have a light fixture. Switch is going to be right there on the fixture. Easy on or off toggle switch. Nothing too crazy there. Dropping down low, we have the Schwintek system here, the Schwintek slide out system. Now this is going to carry some maintenance with it. Again, on that 90-day maintenance schedule, it is very important that we do lubricate these tracks. Now you have two independently geared motors that push that slide in and out, as well as two sets of tracks. So you have tracks here, top to bottom. On the other side, you'll have those tracks corresponding. What we're going to use here is going to be a dry silicone lubricant. We're going to go ahead and spray those down. Again, every 90 days, run that slide in and out a few times, and we're going to be good again for the next 90 days. Now, when we talk about the Schwintek system, it is very important that we avoid short bursts when we're running that in and out. Come either in fully or out fully. Avoid partial openings and, again, short bursts. Also, on that same 90-day maintenance schedule, we're going to want to condition these seals. Now you have these seals wrapping all the way around that slide out, and we want to protect those from that Texas sun. So every 90 days, we're going to use a seal conditioner product, and we're going to spray those down, wiping off any excess. And then again, you're going to be set up for the next 90 days. Remember, you have a set of seals here on the outside, as well as on the inside, because that slide does seal in both directions. Also, down low here, probably the best angle to get a view on it, we have a dump handle there. That is a white handle. That's going to be your freshwater dump there. With all of these dump valves or these Blade X handles, it is just going to be a 6-inch pull towards you to evacuate those. And again, that particular one corresponds with the freshwater holding tank. Has a elbow on the back of that tank. Takes about a minute and a half to dump your full capacity of water from that location. So may have to crawl underneath the slide a little bit, or if the slide is in, you're set up right in line to go ahead and dump that water. Moving on here, as we make our way to the backside of the slide here, it's a good time to talk about tire pressure and lug nuts. Now, first off, with any trailer tire, we run them at the max tire pressure rating. That is going to be 80 psi for these tires here. So very important, we're going to run them at the max. That's going to give us the highest flexibility in terms of weight rating. Now that is very clearly marked here on the sidewall of these tires. There will also be a data tag forward of the unit there, right above that front storage compartment. But you should have no problem visually inspecting that number here. Now, also lug nuts, they have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds here in the shop. Every manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure. Generally, those intervals are going to be the first 10, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. It's very important that we do check and make sure that these lug nuts are maintaining that level of torque. Manufacturer further recommends at the start of each trip, thereon after, that you do again check and make sure they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Hopping up here, a couple things going on each side here of your power supply. We have standard RG6 cable fittings. Those are going to be inlets of either a part cable service, aftermarket satellite package. That is just to feed those services to the designated TV area of the camper, and again, just a pass-through connection to allow you to do so. In between the two is going to be your power supply, as previously mentioned. Now, this is only going to plug into the camper one way. One thing that I do like with these Fear-Round power supplies is this indicator light that is telling you that you have power not only at the pole side of things, but now you have it transitioning into the camper. When we look at this plug, you can see you have two slotted receptacles in one L-shaped. If you line everything up properly, that's going to plug straight in. Give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right there, that locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here to screw down, lock it in further. That's going to keep everything nice and secure, keep somebody from potentially tripping on it, all of those things. Now, with any unit that I do deliver, I do recommend the addition of a 30 amp surge protector. We have a ton of things going on electronically within these units, a lot of sensitive electronics. The only way to protect those things is going from, substandard wiring, surges, dirty power, things like that. The only way to protect that is going to be adding a surge protector in line. If you have any questions on specifically what we recommend and how to use it, feel free to give our parts department a call. They'd be more than happy to educate you, again, on our recommendations. Moving on here, we have your porch light here. Switches directly on the underside of that light. That's going to be strategically placed here in this location to aid with you when you are dumping your holding tanks from this location. So it's an excellent planning to have that included in this location. Before we talk about your black tank flush here, let's go ahead and drop down and actually take a look here at the dump location here. So this is going to be your bayonet style fitting. This is where your waste is actually going to come from, your wastewater and such. Your sewage hose is going to connect the very same way this cap comes off. So you have 4 prongs along the outside of that tube. We're going to line up these keyholes in the halfway position, give it a 1/4 turn to the right. That's going to go ahead and lock it on. From there, we are ready for service. Now, keep in mind, specifically with this setup here, your black water tank specifically has some limitations. So your valves are going to be a little bit further up here underneath this J-wrap. They're a little tough to see. We have your black water valve up there, and a little further back we have your gray water here. Now, it goes without saying that black water is going to spend 90% of its life in that closed position. We only dump as necessary. So 2 scenarios that you're going to want to dump, either when the monitor panel on the inside says you're full, or you're changing locations. Either way, our goal is to keep that black water tank in as wet or flowing condition as we can. We want to keep that body waste and that toilet paper easily, let it easily evacuate that tank, and of course the way to do so is by keeping it wet. And the only way to keep it wet is to go ahead and keep that valve in the closed position. So when it does come to dump, we are just going to give that a 6-inch pull towards us. Of course, we make sure we are properly hooked up here with the sewage hose first. That's going to allow that, that waste to evacuate that tank. A popular option from there on out is to then use the gray water to rinse that shared plumbing as well as the sewage hose on the way out. Keep in mind though that those two valves should never be open at the same time. It is very important that we avoid any cross-contamination or backfeeding issues, and you're going to do that by keeping them in the closed position. So operate them as you like, as long as that black water valve is in the closed position during use, and as long as those two valves are not open at the same time, you're going to be in good shape. So kind of backtracking a little bit, we have your black tank flush here. Now that corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank, and that is specifically, again, designed to help blast off that compounded toilet waste, body waste, things like that. It works exceptionally well. I recommend that you use that every single time you dump the tank. That's going to help keep your sensors reading accurately, as well as, again, help with any compounding of that toilet waste and body waste. Now, it does have limitations. There is not any scenario where you would want to overflow that tank with that black tank flush. So my recommendation is when utilizing that black tank flush, if you choose to do it with the valve in the closed position, which is obviously going to give you the most rinsing action or the best rinsing action, that you watch that monitor panel on the inside very closely and monitor that level as it fills up within the tank. I would not let that get more than 2/3 full before I ran out here and relieved that pressure at the valve, essentially rinsing it. Now this is your starter hose that's meant to get you started. When it does come to upgrading, go ahead and upgrade to one with a clear elbow on the end. What that's going to allow you to do is visually see that water when you're rinsing, and you know you've done a great job when that water starts to run clear. Moving on here, we have the gray water valve here. I'm not sure if you got that on camera, but that is just going to be a few feet behind that black water valve. Moving on, storage compartment here, excellent place for a generator or any cargo. For us, not really much we need to speak of. We have your rooftop ladder access. Now, great time to point out the structural maintenance for the unit. This is going to aid you in crawling up on the roof and doing your maintenance inspection, which is going to be every 90 days. What we're looking for is going to be wherever two pieces come together, whether again that's on the roof line or on the body, the manufacturer is going to utilize some sort of sealant. It is very important that we maintain that sealant and are inspecting it every day or inspecting it every 90 days to see any degradation in that sealant. So what we have on the rooftop is going to be a self-leveling lap sealant. Dicor is generally the big name that produces that. Generally you'll source that either online or at an RV parts house. We're looking for, again, any peeling, cracking, separation, and we're going to spot seal as necessary. Here on the body, they use generally a 100% silicone product, and again, we're going to look in for any degradation in that. Generally with sealant, with silicone, you remove the whole bead in that line, and you're going to reseal it with that. Again, 100% silicone on the body, self-leveling lap sealant on the roof. All right, so when it comes to changing a tire, you're going to place your jack on the axle as close to the tire as you can without it interfering in your work. You're going to go ahead and jack the axle up. It will, the other tandem axle will kind of shift out of the way, and that will allow you to go ahead and do your work from that location. But again, make sure the jack that you are going to be carrying on board is going to be sufficient to go ahead and do the job that is necessary. Here on the back, we have a secondary receiver that's going to be excellent for a bike rack, a cargo rack, whatever you choose to carry back there. It does have a max capacity of 250 pounds, so just make sure you don't exceed that limit. Outside shower here, nothing too crazy from a functionality standpoint. You have access to hot and cold water. The sprayer and the hose wrap up into the compartment. It is all self-contained, is going to work very well for you. Beside that, we have your city water connection. Now, water pressure becomes very important when we talk about the city water connection. Generally, these units are designed to have a working water pressure in between 40 and 75 psi. It's very important that we do not exceed that 75 psi water pressure. So we include a regulator with you. That's going to regulate that pressure in between 40 and 50 psi, which is sufficient for most people's needs. With any water pressure regulator, we're going to recommend that you hook that onto the spigot side of the hose as opposed to the trailer connection, because we want to keep as much weight off of these trailer bound connections as possible. So we're going to hook that directly onto the spigot. We of course then hook up this hose as normal. So the spigot side onto the water pressure regulator, and then of course the trailer side is going to make that connection by rotating that trailer bound connection there. Very straightforward. Again, this is going to be your RV park option, your full-time running water option. On grid, you'll go ahead and use that. Water heater. This is a 6-gallon capacity dual source water heater. Carries a fair amount of maintenance with it. Manufacturer is going to recommend that anytime you're going to be storing the unit for more than 7 days, it is very important that we do go ahead and drain the water heater of its water. To do so, especially from a safety standpoint, you want to go ahead and make sure you're following these directions very closely. So number one, give it ample time to cool down, a lot longer than you may think, at least 2 or 3 hours. Once we're fairly certain of the temperature, it's very important that we do depressurize it. We can use the hot side of any spigot to depressurize the unit, or any fixture, the hot side of any fixture to depressurize the unit. So number one, we have to cut the inflow of new water to the unit. So if we're using the city water connection here, we're going to physically turn that off at the valve or disconnect our hose from this location. If we're using the freshwater holding tank and the 12-volt water pump, we're just going to turn that water pump off. So no new water flowing into the camper itself. We can then come over here to your outside shower because of its close proximity to the unit. We're then going to turn that hot side of the spigot on again, let that pressure bleed off from this sprayer fixture here. Once we see no new water coming from that fixture, that means the unit itself has been depressurized. We can go ahead and finish that draining procedure. So what's up next is we're going to take an 1.6 1/16 socket and extension, and we're going to go ahead and back that drain plug out. Once we do that, we're going to see 4 to 5 gallons of water here at this location. No easy way to catch it. It's just going to kind of flow out wherever it chooses to do so. So once we've drained it, we're going to have this drain plug. We're going to visually see the anode rod portion of the water heater. Now, what an anode rod is it's a looks like a 12-inch by 3/4 inch rod. What it acts like is a magnet for hard water deposits and calcification. They deposit on that anode rod and effectively eat away at that, as opposed to the inside of the water heater. What I'm getting at is it is a consumable part. Expect to get a year or two out of anode rod before needing to be changed. You're going to know again the condition of it because you are going to be draining and inspecting that anode rod anytime the unit is going to be in storage for more than 7 days. Starts out again 3/4 of an inch in diameter. You'll know it's time to replace when it's about the size of a pencil and looks clearly decrepit. So we've drained the water heater, we've inspected the anode rod. It comes to return. It's time to return the unit back to service. To do so, we need to prime or pump 6 gallons of water into the water heater before we, of course, turn it on. We want to avoid a dry fire scenario at all costs. It's terrible for the water heater. It can damage it permanently. So to do that, we need to introduce an inflow of water again to the camper overall. We're going to either do that with the city water connection here or the potable water. So with new water running into the unit, again, we're going to utilize the hot side of any fixture. Doesn't necessarily have to be this outside shower. It could be the kitchen sink. It could be the bathroom sink. Either way, we're going to turn that hot side of the spigot on. Now this time that flow is going to be very spitty, very airy, very interrupted. What it's doing is it's displacing the air within the tank and replacing it with water. It takes about 8 minutes or so to effectively do that properly. So once that flow normalizes at the fixture, that is going to be our indicator that we do have 6 gallons of water within the unit and we are clear to choose our source. Again, I mentioned it is a dual source water heater. It will run on 110 volt electricity as well as propane gas with 12 volt ignition or both sources. If you're running it on both sources, that's going to give you a recharge rate of 17 gallons per hour. If you're running it on standalone propane, you're coming in at about 15 gallons per hour. And lastly, electricity is going to be somewhere in at 11 gallons per hour. Now, very important with any propane burning appliance that we do protect it from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. To do so, it's very important that we do screen off not only these louvers, but this grating as well. Mud daubers are attracted to the smell of propane, so they want nothing more but to nest deep within these appliances. Again, they sell aftermarket bug screens specifically cut to cover these, and that's going to be our recommendation here as a dealership, is to make sure we put those in place. Moving on here, we have the back of your fridge panel here. Now again, it's very important that we do protect these vents from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. They can crawl right there up into the vents. Once we have those screens in place, not too terribly much maintenance that this appliance carries, but we do want to periodically remove this vent cover. I have a little screwdriver to do so. You can easily use your fingers as well. Once we turn those in that secondary position, that will allow this to come off. And again, we're going to do that every 90 days. We want to go ahead and inspect the compartment here, make sure nothing's gotten in, make sure there's no frayed wires, cracked propane lines, loose fittings, things like that. So give it a visual inspection, make sure nothing's gotten in, make sure visually everything looks great, and you're going to be good to go. Again, we want to screen these off further to make sure nothing's gotten in. Now when I replace this, I put the tabs down first on the bottom. I line up these holes here, and again, we're just going to turn those into that inline position, making sure everything is sitting flush. That's going to go ahead and lock it on. I always go back after the fact and make sure I in fact seated that properly and that we are locked on. Dropping down low here to your furnace. This is a propane burning furnace, and it has a 12 volt blower motor and ignition. So again, not really what we would consider a customer serviceable unit, but we do need a bug screen here in place to protect it from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. Other than that, make sure we're not restricting the flow, make sure we don't put a lawn chair or anything else up in front of it, give it enough room to breathe. Again, absolutely do not want to restrict the flow of that unit. Couple 110 volt all-weather outlets. Again, nothing crazy, just going to allow you to power some devices here on the porch area. Now up high we have your awning and your speakers. We're going to get to the operation of those on the inside. They are again controlled right there inside the entry door, and we'll get to that. Potable water fill here. So this is how we fill that onboard water tank. We're going to stick a drinking water hose directly in the unit, and we are going to fill it up till it overflows. Once full, we cap off, and again, you need to use that onboard water pump to draw that water up from the tank and make it usable. And again, we're going to get to the location of that switch when we go over the inside features. Other than that, kind of standard stuff here with standard RV style assist rails, going to lock in the out position. We'll fold against the body there for transit, or against the body if you'd like that, or against the door, whichever you prefer. Steps, very easily fold up and in. Bottom step folds over top the second step, and then all of them go ahead and tuck there underneath the camper on the way out. Same thing in reverse. Coming here into this compartment here, we have quite a bit going on here. Battery disconnect switch. Very important that for battery maintenance that we do utilize that battery disconnect switch anytime the unit is going to be in storage. Long-term storage, that's going to help again keep that battery in tip-top shape. with any 12-volt system, there's going to be nominal or phantom draws in the background. This is going to help eliminate those taking their wear and tear on the battery. Clearly marked in terms of position on and off. Just make sure that you are returning that to the on position when you start your trip. That way any environmental draws on those batteries can be recharged via your vehicle's charge line going down the road to your destination. Also, we have your stabilizer jacks. Now those are clearly marked in terms of position, extend or retract. With those, they're not for leveling, they are only for stabilization. Come down, make contact with the pavement, and immediately stop. Leveling from front to back is going to be done with the main tongue jack up front. Leveling from left to right is going to be done with the tires and the leveling kit of your choice. Once we are within 3 degrees of level, we are then going to lower those stabilizer jacks down and stopping immediately once they make contact with the pavement. Same lights fixture that we saw on the other side, easy on-off toggle switch, nothing too crazy there. And then down low here we have a ZAMP solar plug. This is designed for any portable solar panel. It's going to be a direct connection to the battery, essentially plug and play. We make our connection here, take our panel out into the sunlight. It's going to take in energy as necessary. Once that battery bank is full, it is smart enough to stop taking in energy. Very excellent add-on feature there. It allows you to park your unit in the shade, but take your panel out into the sun, still take advantage of solar there. Last but not least, here on the front of the unit, well, a couple things. We got, again, that same style porch light that we've been running, and then we also have a toy lock down here. Now, this is a Lipper product. What it basically is a ratcheting cable lock that's going to allow you to secure any outdoor equipment, whether that be a generator, motorbike, whatever. Anything that needs securing can be done with this. And again, it's just a standard cable lock that does ratchet. So very easy to use. You'll probably get your use out of that. So very cool feature. We're going to hop on the inside, start taking a look at that stuff there. So come along. Alrighty, so right here inside the entry door, we have kind of your main light switch cluster as well as awning and slide out controls here. So awning, extend and retract here. Now this is a momentary switch. It's not what we would consider a one-touch awning. So once you take your finger off the switch, that awning stops in that position. Just make sure you're not overextending that awning and stopping immediately when you hear it make contact with the camper sidewall. And that's going to put any unnecessary stress or keep any unnecessary stress off of that system. Slide in and out switch. We already talked about that on the outside. It is very important that we do operate that correctly. Fully in, fully out. No partial openings, no short bursts, things like that. It does have an electric brake built in within the system, so hold that in until you hear that motor power down. Switches here, we have. I'm going to open up the door because I'm not exactly sure what these control. First one here is going to be your awning light. This one here is going to be your courtesy light, as they call it. Just a common switch that you can hit coming in the door to light your way. And then this one is going to be a secondary light switch there for the 2-bedroom lights. Now the under cabinet lighting, that's going to have its own switch there on the underside. Down low we have your fire extinguisher. It's very important that we talk about your safety equipment and the importance of testing it. We have a little green test tab down there. We push that down. If it springs back, that means there's still life within the unit. If it stays depressed, it's time to pull out and change. Now we test all of our safety equipment every single time we take the unit out. That's going to be your fire extinguisher, smoke alarm, carbon monoxide, LP leak detector. We're going to hammer that home a couple more times throughout the unit. If I take a look here at the windows, for the most part, I believe these windows, we got a couple different styles here, but these particular style windows are going to utilize that kind of, I call them school bus style windows. You have this 2 sliding spring tabs here that will allow you to go ahead and open that window from that position there. It does have a couple locking positions on the way up, and then we have our pull down shades here. These are very standard style of shade. They keep their tension here on the side strings. As the unit ages, would not surprise me if those need to be retensioned. That is something you can do at home. If we go ahead and pull some excess string on that, that keeper, tie another knot. They're going to be good for many more years to come. Now here into the bedroom, not too terribly much that you know is going to surprise you. You have hanging storage on each side of the bed, folded storage up top here if you're choosing to utilize those for clothes. Each side of the bed is going to have its own 110 volt outlets and a couple USBs as well. Very cool feature we have is going to be the maxxair fan. Now this is my favorite exhaust fan on the market. I like the remote control aspect of it. So if we go ahead and turn this on, that's going to get us all set up. That's going to open the lid. When we look at controls here, we have a standalone fan speed. So we can just choose, you know, I believe that's 10% increments. And that's going to be indicated here in terms of fan speed. Left or right is going to actually change the temperature. Excuse me, the set temperature or the thermostatic temperature. It will kick on and on, say, throughout the night to maintain that set temperature, and that's going to be noted here. You have your set temperature and you have your room temperature. And then we can change directions of that fan. We can either bring air in or exhaust it. We can actually close the vent and still run that fan to circulate air within the unit. Also, there is going to be a rain sensor built into that fan. So what that means, in the middle of the night, if it starts raining, that fan's going to close that lid. That fan's going to continue to run, and it's going to keep you from getting wet here in this area. Very great fan, very great feature. A good pairing to this is going to be a rooftop cover, vent cover as we call it. What that's going to allow you to do is go down the road with that vent in the open position. That's going to keep the unit nice and fresh. It's not going to be stuffy when you get to where you're going. Storage on the underside of the bed here, which again is a very efficient use of space. They make it easy with the gas struts, stays open on its own. Again, a very efficient use of otherwise wasted space. Up top there, we got your smoke alarm. As I mentioned previously, we do want to test that every single time we take the unit out. Push the test tab down, listen for the audible tone. It does run on a 9-volt battery just like we have at home. It'll let you know when it needs to be replaced. My recommendation is, of course, never remove the battery from it. Keep a spare battery within the unit in the event that it does need to be changed. Actually, I believe I misspoke. I think this is actually, yeah, so I'm sorry. This is a carbon monoxide detector. This is your smoke alarm. Although both need to be tested, both run on 9-volt batteries, both will indicate to you when there is a problem. So keep that in mind. Also above the bed there, all of these outdoors RVs, they do come pre-wired for roof-mounted solar. That is going to be the location of the charge controller, and that is going to be where those wires transition. So it is very easy to go ahead and add that on at any time. On the underside of each bed, which I didn't even know this was here, I just saw it, you have a drawer there. So you got it on both sides. Wow, that's really cool. I've never seen that in a camper before. But that is a really cool, again, a very efficient use of space, and they're doing a great job with their design. I really, really enjoy that. Moving on here into the kind of living room area, we of course have your television here. This is held in place a couple different ways. Of course, you can see the bungee here. If we go ahead and remove that bungee, might be easier from this side. Yep, easier from this side. With that out of the way, this TV set is still kind of locked in position. So we have a little locking mechanism here. If I pull down on that, that will then allow us to go ahead and pull this out into the common areas of the camper, directionalize it as necessary. If we kind of move this TV out of the way, because that functionality is going to be the same as any other TV you're used to. On the roof of this unit, we have an omnidirectional digital over-the-air television antenna. We turn that antenna on and off from this location. There's a little green light. If we're on, that means that we're utilizing the antenna. If we want to take advantage of a park cable service, we have to make sure that that light is in the off, or that switch is in the off position, and that antenna is off. When we're turning the TV back into that locking position, we want to make sure we're not going to pinch any wires or anything like that. So there we go. And then you're going to go ahead and take your bungee cord and secure that back on. Dinette area. Now this is going to make an excellent secondary sleeping area. You have this huge table. I really love these dinettes in these outdoors RVs. Now again, this makes a secondary sleeping area. So what you're going to do is you're going to separate the table from the pedestal. So you're going to wiggle this tabletop loose. You're going to momentarily move that out of the way. If you're lucky, both of these support poles have stayed put. Sometimes they'll come away with the table. Either way, separate all of those pieces. They are just a friction, held by friction, so you may have to wiggle that pole a little bit to loosen it. Once you've carefully removed the poles from the tabletop and then the pole from the flange, you'll be left with 3 pieces. We're going to go ahead and store the poles somewhere else. We're going to take our tabletop, and if we lift up these cushions here, we have ledges here on each of these dinette seats. We're going to take our tabletop, we're going to put that right down there on those ledges. Once we've done so, we're going to take the rear cushion of each dinette, we're going to put those directly on the tabletop, and that's going to fill out a nice large secondary sleeping area. Would be great for any adult or children. Storage underneath each side of these dinette seats as well. Of course, you have a lot of your kind of bits and bobs here within this one. TV remotes, literature, user manuals, things like that. So a couple add-ons there that they like to include with the unit. But very, very effective secondary sleeping area. Lighting above the table, if switch is going to be right there on the fixture. Again, very straightforward. All right, so we're going to hop here into the bathroom. We go ahead and get some lights on in here. Your light switch is going to be right inside the door. It's going to be this middle switch here. Now we also have a water pump switch here located in the bathroom. In the event that you are in here utilizing the toilet but may have forgot to turn the water on, you can go ahead and do so from this location. We also have a maxxair fan in here as well. Slightly different controls here, and we do have limited control. So we just have open or on there, fan off, then open or close. So very basic controls, and this is going to be an exhaust only. So exhaust only, that's going to help draw any moisture out of the air when showering, things like that. Shower is very straightforward. You're going to have the tub and diverter there, on-off sprayer on the actual fixture. So that's going to help you conserve not only hot water but water consumption overall. I love the hideaway shower curtain there. That just easily folds out into the rest of the bathroom, and then when not in use, again, just folds back in. Medicine cabinet, that's very straightforward stuff there. Porcelain toilet with a pedal flush, light press on the bowl to fill up the toilet with water, full press to go ahead and flush it. Always want to use the correct products when it does come to the black water holding tank in the toilet itself. Single ply RV grade toilet paper, deodorizing, whether that's liquid chemical or the drop-ins, as well as a tissue dissolver. All of those products are generally introduced to the system here from the commode. Generally, of course, you're going to follow the directions on the product you're using, but most of them you chase with a small amount of water, and you're going to be good for the entire time you're using the unit. Now, I also recommend using a toilet treatment when storing the unit. That's going to, again, help further deodorize your tank while it is just kind of sitting there, kind of baking in the sun. So, main GFI outlet is also housed here in the restroom. That does have a reset and test button. All of the receptacles within the unit are on the same circuit. If one of them gets overloaded, they all kind of follow suit. Again, this is going to be that reset point for that. Down low here, we have this opening here. Now this is going to give us access. Let me get out of the way here so Clint can get it. That's going to give us access to your water pump. Now that's very helpful, not only from a maintenance standpoint, but also if you're doing any winterization. This is going to be the point of entry for that antifreeze. So you see that valve right there within that location. If I go ahead and pull this hose out, and we saw that valve, this is going to actually be where we introduce that antifreeze. So we stick this directly into our bottle of antifreeze, we follow this hose back to that valve, and we turn that valve in line with this hose. From there, we're going to use the water pump to draw that antifreeze up to this fixture. So then we walk around each fixture, we turn each one on. Once we see that antifreeze at the actual fixture, that is our indicator that we are fully winterized. We're going to be good until we drain that or rinse that antifreeze from the system. So that is just, again, going to be the location or the point where we introduce that. We have your Furon system here. Now this is going to be CD, DVD, AM, FM radio, Bluetooth. Excuse me, all of those features are going to be utilized from this location. It does communicate with the television. You're going to control both zones of speakers, interior and exterior, from this location. Mode button here on the end, Bluetooth search here, and then I believe you have a couple other selections there. 3.5 millimeter inlet, USB inlet, works exceptionally well. Very simple, kind of basic style of unit. But if you have any trouble navigating through the menus, there is a service manual for it. Feel free to consult that manual or give us a call. Generally, we're very familiar with these units. We can walk you through them over the phone. Switch here is going to be for the main kitchen lights. I love the multiple switching. I love kind of the separation in between the rooms. It's not a huge camper, but it does very much feel, very separated, very large. Down low, we have your propane leak detector. Again, that's part of your safety equipment. It is very important that we do, again, test that. This particular monitor is hardwired into the 12-volt section of the camper, so it secondarily functions not only as a low battery alarm, but of course as your propane detector. So if your battery gets too low within the unit, it's going to start alerting at you, letting you know that you are about to lose not only a very important safety function, but all functionality here soon enough by the time that starts indicating to you. So no batteries to change, is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper. Moving on, we have your high point microwave up top here, regular turntable style microwave. Controls are going to be very indicative of what you're used to. Down low, we have your fuse panel breaker box. Here on the left, we have your replaceable automotive blade style fuses. Definitely my recommendation, keep some spares with you in the event that you need to change those on the road. On the other side, we have your 110 volt light switch style resetting breakers. Very much like you have in your circuit box at home or fuse panel box at home. Those may trip, but they are, again, easily resettable. Also, on this side, we have another maxxair fan. Operation is going to be the same as your bathroom fan, so we've already talked about that. It's a very cool concept since there's no hood exhaust above the cooktop here. Very important that we do have that on and running anytime we are preparing a meal here. That's going to, of course, exhaust any unburnt propane gases, things like that. So keep that in mind there. We got a couple 12 volt cigarette lighter style receptacles here at this location. A couple 110 volt outlets. I just love these full wraparound, huge windows. This is a remarkable floor plan. I really do like this. Now we have some different shades here and some different window openings. So of course you have a locking tab there. You unlock that. That's going to allow you to go ahead and open that window. Of course, with that running in reverse, that pulls in a nice cross breeze within the unit. That's going to work well for that. Of course, we close the window. We make sure that it's fully closed so we can go ahead and lock it. Then we have a projector style shade. Now that's going to be all of these windows here in this kitchen area. And again, just a very remarkable kind of scenario. Little access here. This would be access for into that storage compartment. You could, of course, put a wastebasket there, but either way is just kind of an open cavity at this point. Cooktop here, Suburban cooktop, tempered glass top. Now this is just a countertop extender. This is not a griddle, not a heating plate. Of course, make sure these burners are off and cool down before closing the lid here. Now when I open it, I flip the front half over the back half and lift up. And then we have your cooktop here with an igniter. So I turn this to light. I can go ahead and rotate that igniter clockwise, and that's going to go ahead and light the burner. So very easy to light. Oven's going to kind of be lit in an old-fashioned way. You have your indicator here, so we go ahead and turn that on. You're actually lighting, or your indicators are on the knob itself, and pilot is actually in that position here. So we go ahead and turn that, and we hold that on, and then we're going to come down here. And there's two prongs that we're going to be looking at down there. And we're going to put our flame in between the two prongs down here. Almost never shows up on camera, but there are two prongs down there. We're going to put our lighter directly on those two prongs until that pilot lights. And then we can go ahead and choose our temperature here on the actual knob. Moving on here, of course, again, we're kind of getting down to the end. We got a couple more appliances, but you have a large sink here, pull-out sprayer, multiple spray modes on the actual fixture. Again, I love this sink, love the size of it, love the single opening large sink. Other than the cabinetry, which I'm not going to open each one of these, you kind of get the point with that. Refrigerator, very basic, straightforward refrigerator. I believe this is only a two-way refrigerator. Of course, the mode that we're in right now, that little droplet is going to be propane gas. The more snowflakes we see, the cooler it is. Mode button here, so that's going to be auto AC. What that means on that's the most popular option. On auto AC, it defaults to AC power if that's available. If it becomes interrupted or is not available, it's going to automatically start lighting on gas. So that, again, is the most popular option. If I hit it again, we see that A disappears, and we just have a plug. That's going to be AC or standalone AC. If at that point the power gets interrupted, there is no automatic switchover. The unit will stop cooling at that point. And then lastly, it's just going to be that propane droplet, and that's where we started. That's standalone gas, so with no automatic switchover either way. And then again, off button here. We hold that until the display turns off. If you run into any issues with sources being interrupted or unavailable, this little green light will indicate red to tell you that there is some sort of issue. And then lastly, we have your air conditioner and furnace control and thermostat here. Now what you have here is, if we go all the way to the left on this multi-position switch, that's going to turn that air conditioner on. And then here we have to choose a fan speed. So on the right, all the way on the right side of the switch, you have low and high. That's always on or full-time on. So once it reaches our thermostat set temperature, that fan is going to continue to run indefinitely. On the left side of that spectrum, we have a low and a high marker as well. That's going to be auto. So that's going to reach that thermostatically set temperature and then shut down. Very traditional, like what you're used to in the residential sector. And then if I go to the mode switch and I switch that one over, that's going to be fan only, is labeled here. If I switch it one over from that, that's going to be off. And if I switch it all the way to the right, that's going to be furnace. Now we choose our temperature with this slider here. So if I slide that all the way there past 90, that kicks on the blower motor. Ducted on the floor, you see the registers there on the floor, so it's kind of like a nice, it doesn't come from one central location. It's going to spread that throughout the camper. Now, once I turn that on, that blower motor kicks on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing heat. Would not surprise me in a unit of this size if that furnace actually sets off the smoke alarm. Per manufacturer of the furnaces, recommendations is that's completely acceptable. As that furnace continues to run, generally after about 15 minutes, it's going to cease to stop setting off the smoke alarm as the efficiency rating goes up as it runs. So if that happens to you, just consider this a warning of that possibility. Not something that you need to be worried about, as long as, again, it is within that first 15 minutes of operation. I believe we just about covered it here on the inside of the unit. We do hope that you enjoyed the walkthrough of the Creekside. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you for watching.